Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we are jumping into another first beer from a brewer I've never had anything from prior. Today we are trying a beer from New Anthem Brewing Company. They're based in Wilmington, North Carolina. This beer is called Sin Highway. It's an Imperial Stout clocking in at 11.3% ABV, and it's been brewed with habanero peppers, vanilla, cinnamon, and cacao nibs. So yeah, Sin Highway, I'm guessing that's due to the heat here in this big Imperial Stout. Label art, they have a super clean design, just nice kind of black with a little silver foil with their logo there and the name of the beer. Very super clean design. So let's get this cracked. And we're going to get this poured right in the old stout glass here. Oh, yep, that is very thick, very dark. Let's go a little more aggressively down the middle. Might get a little slosh back, but want to give this beer a fair chance to form a head. Thick ones like that can often have a problem if you're too gentle. So hopefully I bypass that. Yeah, as expected on this Imperial, it is absolutely pitch black. It is a pitch black beer. Imperial Stout, you would expect that. I can also tell you the aroma is extremely pronounced. I can smell it from here. What I'm already starting to get in the air smells amazing. Look at that thick, creamy head of foam. That did not have a problem at all. I'd like to think that being a bit aggressive helped it, but you know, it is what it is. It looks great, right up for a good sniff. Oh yeah, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of roasted malt aroma coming off of this beer. The vanilla you can also really smell quite clearly. Cinnamon's there, but it's a little subtle on the nose. You can smell a little bit of the habanero, but it's more you're kind of picking up some of that heat that does come up in the aroma as well. But it looks visually fantastic. The head formed beautifully. It smells amazing. And, you know, let's just jump right in, see what this one's about. First sip. Oh, wow. Oh, that is rich. That is a rich, rich beer. Dense, rich, packed full of flavor. Very deep, deep, intense flavors here. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about in this flavor profile, and it gets progressively more complex as more time goes over. But first, let's talk about this body and this mouthfeel. Body on this feels a nice, full, medium heavy. At 11.3, it's nice and robust. Really matches that ABV. The mouthfeel, a good bit of resistance here. It's got a nice, thick feel to it that really matches that heavy body. This one, when you agitate around the pellet, it does get very creamy. It feels even more lush. So texture and weight-wise, it's spot on for the style and the ABV range. Now this flavor profile. As soon as you swallow, there's just a little bit of a delay, and then it's a really quick blossoming of intensity of flavor. And it starts with subtle roast notes. And then it starts to open into these coffee-like notes. And then it starts to get into really deep, deep roast. We're talking the level of roast like Italian French coffee bean, pulled before the smoke point. It doesn't get smoky, but there's a lot of char. It gets this earthy bit to it. There's even a good sense of bitters. This is a very deep, very roasted beer. It's clear they used a lot of very roasted malts, obviously visually, but the volume is there. So it gives it a lot of oomph. There's a big intensity of flavor. So the vanilla on this one, that really comes on the front side in this beer. It comes up on the front end. When you first swallow, there's this slight little bit of this sweetness, which you often get even without lactose in a high ABV beer. It's just the way that they present themselves often. That's what happens here. That's where the vanilla is really quite present. The cinnamon on this one kind of comes in on the back, and it's a very kind of whisper of cinnamon. It's pretty faint. It's there. You can pick it out, but it really comes on the back end of the finish. And the cacao obviously is really doing a good job binding with those notes that mix in this deep, rich, roasty malt bill. Really, really nice. The habanero. Habanero is a pepper. I don't actually particularly care for the flavor of the pepper itself, though I do like the heat. But I gotta say, in this, they did not go overboard. They did not use a ton of it to make it taste like habanero, and indeed, it's got a subtle heat to it. So they used a very deft hand when crafting this to not put people off by making it intensely heat. Habaneros obviously are pretty well known for being a hotter than the average person that doesn't really like spicy food chili. It's got a nice bit of heat to it. This is a little subdued. It's styled back. I would say it's balanced. That's the best way I could put it. In particular, that heat. They balanced it so it didn't go overboard, which would be really easy to do with habanero. So let alone it not actually tasting like peppers, they just got enough in there to give it this little extra special something that it otherwise would not have. Very nice beer. My first impression, I really, really like this. This is an extremely, extremely well done Imperial Stout. Really nice first example of what a brewer is about for my money. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip, let everything re-intensify, see if I missed anything, then we'll talk more in depth about the finish. I know I usually say that, sometimes I forget. I'm making a point here. I am going to talk about the finish on this beer, so take two. You swallow, slight sweetness, already a bit of roast. The vanilla is quite clear up front. Oh, the cinnamon is actually quite clear there as well. And you really get the bulk of the heat right up front. Then it starts to progressively just continue to blossom open as that roasted malt gets ever roastier. It gets into those chocolatey notes. That cacao is really binding to that. It's quite nice. Very rich. This is almost like a fudge-like chocolatey flavor. Then it gets into that kind of Italian French roast coffee bean side. Progressively further, it gets more earthy, a little more bitter on the palate, and then it starts to take on this nice earthy char-like quality. And as it does its kind of slow descent. So the finish on this one. This one is longer than average, especially to not be a barrel-aged stout. And it really on this one is coming from the intensity of the roast of the beans. There's not residual, really intense cinnamon or cacao nib, or really even the peppers. There's a little bit of residual heat and then just that little whisper of cinnamon on the back end. But it is driven largely by that charry, earthy, roasty malt bill and still a relatively impressive amount of lingering bitters from that malt bill. Even though it's not super intense on the bitter side, it's got enough. It's roasty. I would say, again, I come back to this beer is extremely well balanced. I am a really big fan of this. So, I mean, a great first example. The combination of ingredients, really well selected. The way that they balanced them in this, the base beer by itself without the additives would be tremendous. And then taking the additive ingredients that they chose and getting them balanced just right, this is exactly a perfect case example of how to balance a big beer properly. I absolutely love this one. I'm going to take my time, sip on this beer, come up with my scores. When we come back, we'll get this one ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was New Anthem Beer Project. I said brewing company because it was really tiny and hard to see, but when I checked this in on Untapped, I saw it's New Anthem Beer Project. So that is the name of the brewer. This was Sin Highway, an Imperial Stout clocking at 11.3% ABV, brewed with habanero peppers, vanilla, cinnamon, and cacao nibs. And New Anthem Beer Project is based in Wilmington, North Carolina. So this was, for my money, a spectacular first beer to have from a new-to-me brewer. First one I've had from New Anthem, absolutely delicious, a tremendous stout. There was only one category on this one that didn't get a perfect score. That was in the finish, which actually I was a little surprised by that because this beer did have a very pronounced flavor-forward profile to it. But it, despite the depth of the roast that it had, even a good chunk of lingering bitters, it didn't drive out quite as long as I expected. That being said, it was definitely above average, and I did give the finish a 7 out of 10. It did get a perfect 10 out of 10 in all other 9 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling in the intangible, and example of style, which does bring the total score on New Anthem Beer Project's Sin Highway to a 97 out of 100. Absolutely top tier stout. This was a very big, bold, in-your-face stout, and far more rich and roasty and intense on the malt bill side than I anticipated, and I absolutely loved it. I love a big, bold, roasty stout. This was absolutely tremendous. Easily in the top echelon of stouts I've ever had. I loved it. I will for sure be keeping my eyes out for more beers from New Anthem. If this is any indication of what they're about, I think I'm in for a treat. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep your beer, keep your craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.